Hello and welcome to my first video here on YouTube. I'll be taking you through my processing workflow for astro images using Siril and Photoshop. This video will consist of three parts. One is stacking, the second one is first adjustments using Siril, and the third one is going to be some final adjustments in Photoshop. The data I use for this image was shot using a 450D astromodified from Canon, and the data was collected on 2 consecutive clear nights. First we gotta select a working directory. This is done by clicking the home button here. Then you can create a folder up here. I already created one, the M51 tutorial. I then like to make another folder, the process folder, because Siril uses temporary files and they are nice and organized if you create another folder. Click open, then you're going to want to add your calibration files, for example my biases. I have them right here. These are shot with the Canon 450D, like I said, so they are one-shot color and should be debayed. Click this one if you haven't already. After they've been converted, you can go ahead and stack. Use median stacking for your calibration files, so your biases, darks and flats. After the bias frames are done stacking, you go ahead and repeat the same process for your darks and flats. First we do darks. These were shot on a different night, but that's okay because they are darks, so as long as the temperature is comparable, it should work fine. After that's done, we're going to stack them as well. After we have stacked our darks, we do the same thing for our flats. Because I shot my data on 2 different nights, I also have 2 different sets of flats. I want to create another folder for day 1. Open, and then we can convert these flats I shot on day 1. Hit convert. After we converted our flats, we're gonna go and stack them. It is also possible to subtract your bias frames from your flats, but I don't do that. Then we're gonna take our final one, that's the lights, which we need to convert. This one, lights. Select all using Ctrl A again. Then convert. After the conversion of the lights is done, we check if the correct sequence is selected, which is the case. We use offset, dark and flats. I'm going to go in here and grab by typing stack, it only shows the ones that are stacked, so we want a bias stacked here. And then the dark stacked there. We want to select our flat stack right here. I don't use equalize CFA, and neither do I use optimization. You can estimate your cosmetic correction using your master dark. For me it doesn't work because my cold and hot pixels are way too much. If this number is in white like the rest, you can use it, but I can't because the Canon 450D has too much noise, so I deselect it. Then pre-process. After the pre-processing is done, we can close out of this one because this is the day 1 sequence, and we also have a day 2. So we create another folder like this one. Call it day 2. Create. Open. Then after setting another working directory, we can convert the flats of the second day. So these ones. Convert. When that's done, we can go back into conversion and convert our lights for the second day. Lights. Convert. With the flats converted, we can go ahead and stack them as well using median stacking. With the stacking done, we can add our lights for the second day. After you've imported the lights into Siril, it's important that you change this figure, because this starts at 1, which we did for the first day, but because the files can't be the same and the sequence has to run through, we go into here and check for day 1 how many lights we used, or we have. It's 38 in my case, so we add 1, which means this one has to be 39, so they walk in a full line from 1 to 85, 86, something like that. We convert them. When the converting of the files is done, we can go ahead and pre-process them. We use different flats for day 2, so we want to also use, change this working directory. Still no cosmetic correction for me. Pre-process. After we've pre-processed our lights, we're gonna go into our working directory, day 1, and then select all of our files, our pre-processed files, our lights, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Same thing for day 2, from 39 all the way up. From 39 all the way up to 85. Ctrl C, and then back into here, Ctrl V. When the files have moved to another directory, we can set that working directory in Siril as well. Sequence, search sequences, will show pre-processed lights. I'll force a sequence recomputation just to make sure it works well, and then register your images. This will align them. When the registration is done, we can look at the plot. This will show the how good the frames are. If you look at frame 39, for example, it is well above the graph of the rest. We open it, and then it's looking a bit worse than the rest. The stars are elongated, so we're going to exclude it. This is done like using right mouse button and then click exclude frame. The rest is pretty much in line with one great one, and because the bottom one is the best one. After that's done, we're going to go ahead and stack the images. For the light stacking, you want to use average stacking with rejection, and then Windsorized, Sigma clipping. Weighted is best, as far as I know, and then we're going to go and stack them. with the stacking done, we can now go ahead and process the image. First we want to go and crop the image a little bit because of some stacking artifacts. This is visible here. I like to crop the image quite a lot because my stars are elongated in the corners. I'm going for something like this. If you couldn't tell already, the target I shot is M51, the Whirlpool galaxy. Also, you want to change your viewing mode from linear to outer stretch. This is just a view, so it doesn't affect the image in any way. First we want to calibrate photometric color calibration for the image. This will calibrate the image based on surveys and star colors in those surveys. My focal distance was 1520 millimeters, and the pixel size on the Canon 450D is 5.19. You can find this on the internet. You want to select Simbed or NIT as some kind of plate solve database and hit OK. With the photometric color calibration done, we can go and extract our background because there still is a little bit of gradient in the image. You can adjust your grid tolerance accordingly to fit your nebulae or galaxy. You want to select as much of the background as possible and as little of the galaxy or nebulae. Then compute your background and hit apply. As you can see, it's done quite a good job neutralizing your background. In my image I have a little bit of bending. I don't know if it's clear on YouTube, but there's a red line here and a darker line here. I will go into bending reduction, protect from highlights and hit apply. This has evened out the image a little bit more, and then we are ready for stretching. Put the viewing mode back into linear, go into Ashen transformation. First of all, go for quite a heavy stretch, something comparable to this. You can go a bit more, a bit less, doesn't really matter. And then adjust the black point so that it looks good. Something like this. After the A sign transformation, we can do some final adjustments using the histogram transformation. There's a auto stretch algorithm which will use a hyperbole. It's a bit bright for me, especially the background, so I'm going to lower it a little bit, something like this. Hit apply, close. When this is done, I like to save it. It's important you save it as in 16-bit. It's called FA Siril. When this is done, we're basically done in Siril. And we can open up, and I like to open up Starnet. Browse Siril, Siril stars, run that. After you're done in Starnet, you can open up the starless and the one with stars into Photoshop. And here you select your image with stars, copy it, and then go into image apply. You can apply an image. It's in Dutch for me. I don't know. I couldn't change it. Subtract and select starless image. This way you get a image with only your stars. This you can adjust this one accordingly to what seems fit, what seems right. For me, it's around about 15 because it selects the entire star. You can also use 10 or 5, like that. We can call this little stars, and we'll get back to it later. We can make some adjustments in our starless image. First of all, I like to do some noise reduction because there's quite a lot of it. Use camera roll filter. Scroll down, we see noise reduction right here. And both of them up to 100. Hit OK. And we will adjust our opacity to something like. Just make sure you're not losing detail in your image. Basically the most important. Then we will create a duplicate. Ctrl Shift Alt E. A stamp, as you will. After doing a first bit of noise reduction, I create a synthetic luminance layer using the channels. For me, in this image, the green has the least amount of noise, so I will copy it by hitting Ctrl A and then Ctrl C. Then go into File, New File, Create, and then copy it in. I can delete this one. Then after grabbing green, I grab red, for example. I like to name them as well, so it's organized. And blue. Blue. Green is the least amount of noise, so we'll put it in the bottom. And the red, fairly low cover or opacity over these, because green just has the least amount of noise, so it should have the upper hand. Something like 30% is fine. 30 and red is even worse, so 20. Something like this. Then Ctrl Shift Alt E, which will create another stamp. Ctrl C. Then paste it on top of here, top of the image. As it is black and white, we need to, or as it is a luminance layer which we are using, we need to change it to luminance. In Dutch it's, yeah, it's the bottom one, basically. With that, it will increase the brightness of the entire image, including the darks, so we have to make another adjustments. I like to do this using a histogram. Using the histogram, just create a little S-curve, like this. And I still have the luminance selected. Some levels maybe. Bring the blacks down a bit more. Not too much. After we have applied our luminance layer, we are going to stamp it again using Ctrl Shift Alt E. And in this layer we're gonna go and do some more noise reduction on the background, because our galaxy itself does have a little bit of noise, but not that much, but the background still is quite noisy. We do this by creating using the color range tool and selecting the shadows. We can only select the background and leave the galaxy itself untouched. That looks about right. As we have selected some very small pixels, I will feather our selection by about 2 pixels. This will make sure we only select the galaxy itself. Or maybe in your case it could be a nebula, but you get the point. After that we're going to create a layer mask. It's easiest to just click this button in the bottom here. And let me name it noise reduction background. I'm going to filter, blur. I like to use Gaussian blur. As you can see, that's really quite nice. Still there's a little bit of noise, but that's okay. I'm going to lower the opacity a bit. And then that looks pretty good. Yeah, I kind of like that. After that I am going to sharpen the core of the second and the main galaxy. We can use the same mask by mask add to selection. Then we mask it again. This copies the mask, but as this is selecting the background, we want to invert it using Ctrl and I. Now we're only selecting the galaxy itself. With our new mask we can sharpen the galaxy itself without sharpening the background, because we want to leave that untouched, because sharpening the background will just induce more noise. I'm going to use camera raw filter. Zoom in a bit so we can see all the details. Bit of sharpening. By holding left alt and sliding the mask, you can see what is being sharpened and what isn't. I'm gonna go for this. It doesn't matter if we sharpen a bit of the noise because we are masking it out anyways. You can see it's a very slight adjustment. It's the little things that make a difference. Okay. After that I'm going to stamp it again and then do some final adjustments in camera raw filter before adding the stars back in. These adjustments are things like saturation. I'm going to change the color balance a bit as well because it looks a bit green. I can do that in the color mixer tab. Then hit this guy. And then make it just a little bit more red. I don't like the green color. I'm going to want to saturate the aqua a bit, the blue, the reds maybe, something like this, kind of like that. Yeah, for people who don't know, the color mixer lets you adjust the individual colors. For example, you can adjust the colors itself. For example, I adjusted the greens, the yellows a bit here, so that the colors are more to my personal preference. You can also adjust the saturation of the individual colors. For example, I added some red saturation here, some blue and aqua. I also like to go into here and add a little bit of texture, or a little bit of this, and then just play around with these settings here. Blacks down just a tad. Maybe a little bit of contrast. Something like this. Okay. And you can see it has made quite a big difference to our image. Yeah, I quite like that. Now we can add the stars back in. Control C, Control V. There are a couple of ways to do this. My personal preference is to use either this one or this one. It's in the same order in any of the languages, so if you just select either one of these, it will work. This one just adds a little bit of brightness compared to this one, so I like to use this one and then stamp it again, and then do a slight levels adjustment so the blacks are a bit lower again. Something like this. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Now as a final step we can go and export it. Export, quick export as PNG. I like to create a new folder called edit so I can quickly find it. And then call it maybe final.png or M51 whirlpool.png. Save. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful, and I hope to catch you in the next one.